who are queuing up. So it will be the first two men and the first two women. And
okay.
Sorry. Go.
Okay. First of all, the idea of comprehensive education is a great idea. Unfortunately, it never actually materialized. We live in one of the least inclusive. We live in one of the least inclusive societies you can imagine. This time, 20 years on from or even 30 years on from what we tried to do earlier, if you see what I mean. So it's not quite clear, but basically we are going the other way from where we want to go. Many years ago, people tried to get the society in Britain and other places to be more inclusive, more comprehensive, you can say. But the forces of capital and other neoliberalism moved it the other way around. We have to fight it in order and make our society more inclusive, more accessible, and more comprehensive. When you are having places like Eton and faith schools and all the other places, it's not going to be a comprehensive society until we get rid of our grammar school and private schools and all the other places. On the other hand, what's happening now is that we are going to get academies, free schools, you name it. Free schools, anybody can open, it's so easy. But it's not accountable and they can have their own curriculum. National curriculum came because the government did not like what schools in London and in other inner cities, like Hackney Downs and other places like that, writing the curriculum. They're writing the curriculum to reflect inner city society and writing an anti-sexist, anti-racist curriculum. This is what the government did not want. Now we've got curriculum that come off the shelf making money for multinationals. Education is a money-making operation. We've got no longer got industries, so education and the health service, this is the industries.
Finish, please.
Yeah, and that's why we have to look at it as that.
Right, I want to speak to Amendment A1, which deals with, which wants to get rid of RE teaching, as I read it, and break it up among all the other subjects. Well, I used to teach RE. My name's Robert Brenchley. I'm from Birmingham branch. There seems to be a misunderstanding that RE teaching is about indoctrination. Now, I know very well that misunderstanding is prevalent in some quarters because I've had kids sit there, sir, we know your job is to convert us, and my job then was to tell them that no, I bloody well wasn't, without actually swearing in class, you understand. What the job is actually there for is to teach at least the outlines of all the main religions. If you tried to indoctrinate on one religion, you'd lose your job in nothing flat. So you teach a little bit about Christianity, a little bit about Islam, a little bit about Hinduism, and so on, which means you've got to know a little bit about it, preferably more than the kids know. Of course, if you're teaching in inner city Birmingham, there's a very good chance you're going to have adherents of all the faiths sitting there in your class. So you need to know your stuff. Sorry, I'll do my best. I'm lousy with this thing. They're always complaining at church they don't hear my sermons. Anyway, where was I? Yeah, it's absolutely not about indoctrination. And the problem is, if you break it up among the other subjects, what you're going to end up with is teachers who don't know squat about religion, who couldn't care less, who are forced to pay lip service to it because it's in the curriculum.
Finish, please.
Pay lip service is exactly what they will do.
Afternoon conference, Simon Hardy from Lambeth branch. Education is a battleground, and no more can you see the victims of the war around education than in schools. And by that I mean both the students in the schools and the teachers that are trying to teach them. I'm a secondary school teacher in West London, and I am, at the end of my tether, having to work in a system where students are excessively assessed, constantly, alienated from education, leave school depressed, miserable, massive overbearing systems which are being imposed on them, regimes of control in schools which are in some ways going backwards, not forwards, and the burnt out teachers, low morale, fed up of their professions being treated as this kind of political football by the government. And we have to be the party that is clearly on the side of not just reversing Gove's reforms, which the Labour Party has said they will not do. Tristram Hunt has said that not a single one of Gove's reforms will be reversed. So the performance-related pay, where teachers like myself now have to go and justify what we're doing to the head teacher. And if they're not satisfied, if they don't like you, then you don't get your pay increase that year, okay? There is the introduction of private market mechanisms to try and pressure public sector workers with results in this result-based system. We need to be the party which is not just fighting those reforms, but wants to put forward a better vision of what kind of education could be. The document is only a starting point for that. There's a lot more to do. But the Lambeth amendments, I know there's a lot of them. I hope you enjoyed the sandwiches, by the way. The Lambeth amendments trying to go some way towards strengthening the document, where we think that it could do with more work around secondary education, and trying to introduce more ideas around students helping to co-run the schools as well. I think that's the kind of things that we need to be talking about. Finally, I just want to say on the...
Finish, please. You're out of time, actually.
Abolish Eton. Cancel the whole private sector system in schools.
Finish.
Sarah MacDonald from Hackney branch, also a supporter of the Communist platform. I live in Hackney and teach in secondary school in Islington. I would urge conference at this stage to remit this document, because although it's got plenty of useful and worthwhile things within it, it doesn't really have enough within it, enough content within it, and there are some bits of it that do need rethought, reworked, revisited and changed, particularly around the issue of secular education, which is fundamental, I think, for any left party taking a position on education. The unamended paper calls for is saying that faith is deeply connected to identity, culture and politics, as well as being a vehicle to contemplate moral and philosophical questions such as the meaning of life itself. We've got two amendments that amend this to make it a more secular document, but they have problems inherently within them, and they don't go far enough either. There have been several amendments, some of them are useful, but none of them go quite far enough. There's a lot to deal with in terms of the higher education sector, which isn't dealt with to any extent in this policy document. So in the interest of having something that's more thought through and more secular and deals with the higher education sector as well as early years, primary, secondary, I would suggest that conference remit this paper. Thank you.
Okay. That concludes the round of discussion. So there's a proposal that's just been made to remit the policy document to the National Council. I've also been notified of a proposal to remit the Lambeth amendment to the National Council, but we'll take the proposal to admit, and I'll hear that when we come to the amendment. Excuse me, yeah, sorry. Education Commission, right to reply.
Well, of course, I don't want it remitted. I think it's a framework document. We did call it that. Of course, it's not perfect. Of course, it can be developed. That's why we put all the appendices at the end, where people can go on discussing these things within the commission, which people want to. It's tied with some of the current education campaigns that are going on, Stand Up for Education and the brilliant things that are being already fought for, and many people in Left Unity also belong to those campaigns. I had a difficulty with the Lambeth Amendment saying that the appendix on inclusive education should be deleted. I didn't understand why. The appendixes that we put in ours were only to help put background information to reinforce the point that was in the actual policy. And the policy, in that case, is about inclusive education. And the appendix just elaborates it. I think a lot of people haven't heard the argument for inclusive education from the point of view of people like me who were educated separately and against my will. And I feel that we have a lot to bring to this debate. So I wouldn't like that particular bit. I don't see what benefit you'd have from deleting that. Many of the other appendices are still to be written, and that's the exciting bit about their policy. I don't think teachers' unions should have complete control over the inspection of teachers and teaching in schools. That kind of doesn't quite make sense to me. And I don't think many parents in the world in general outside of that profession would ever agree to that.